Mr. Birch, will you state your relationship with the plaintiff, Mr. Swanson? I am a friend of Mr. Swanson's. Will you state whether or not you observed an automobile accident on September 10th? I did. Where was that accident? 3rd and Oak. Where had you been coming from when you saw the accident? We were coming from a friend's house, as you stated earlier. And where does this friend live? He lives on James Avenue off of 3rd. And about how far is that from the accident happening? I would say 4 or 5 blocks. Will you state why you were over at his friend's house? We were over at, well, he just got married and we went over there to see him for the first time. I see. And who else was there besides yourself and this friend and his wife? Mr. Swanson. And did you arrive together or separately? We arrived separately. How did you get there? Did you go together? In my own car. And will you state what you did while you were visiting at your friend's house? Oh, we watched TV and we had one drink, then we ate. How late did you watch TV? Do you remember approximately? I remember, I would say, until 12:30, I guess. What did you have to do? I don't remember. Oh, yes, coffee and cookies. After you sat around and talked, what time did you leave? It must have been a little after 2. Did you leave separately? That's right. When did you next observe Mr. Swanson's car? About a block away, because he went around the block and I met him at the next block. I got behind him. Will you explain why he went around the block? He was facing the other direction. Were both your cars on the same street, but in different directions? Different directions. Which way were you facing? West. So I could just go on 3rd and out 3rd. Would you explain the weather conditions at that time as you started to drive home? Very good. And the road conditions? Good. By good, do you mean dry? Dry, yes. And then both your car and Mr. Swanson's car were proceeding on 3rd, is that correct? That's right. In which direction were they proceeding? South. And how long were you on 3rd before you got to Oak and 3rd? In other words, how long had you been traveling on 3rd? In blocks, I mean. How do you want that? In time? No, in blocks. In other words, how many blocks had you been traveling on 3rd to Oak? About 3. And how far were you behind Mr. Swanson's car? About half a block. And are you able to remember your speed at that time as you were traveling down 3rd approximately? About 25. And was the distance between you and the Swanson car increasing or decreasing, or the same? About the same. And were you able to observe the speed of the Swanson car, or as it proceeded ahead of you? He was going about the same as I was. Now, as the Swanson car approached Oak and a half a block ahead of you, will you tell the jury what you saw there? Well, all I seen is the brake lights go on. That took my attention, and the sound of the brakes caught my attention, and then the crash. Did you see the defendant's car before the crash? No, I did not. When you saw the crash, what did you do then? I stopped. Approximately where did you stop? Do you remember? About the middle of the block on 3rd. North or south of the accident? North. I see. And what did you do then? I got out and went down to see what it was all about, and I seen Swanson on the pavement of the street. I see. Now, did you observe where the cars were as they came to rest after the accident? Yes. Generally what? Generally, where was Mr. Swanson's car? Should I point it out? Yes, please do. Describe it at the same time for the record. It was close to this curb here, facing northwest. I would say it was more or less north. Would you take that car stamp that is there and stamp it with the stamp pad? That's right, stamp it hard on the stamp pad and place Mr. Swanson's car where you saw it after the accident. I might interrupt if the court please. This plat is built to a scale of 1 inch to 10 feet, and it has been agreed between counsel that the approximate width of the streets at that intersection is 30 feet each, and this represents the outer edges of the street. As you can see, they are both approximately 30 feet wide. The court, perhaps you had better offer the plat. Defendant's counsel, I offer the evidence as Plaintiff's Exhibit A. Plaintiff's counsel, I have no objection. The court, it may be received. Now, will you put a small black X through that car? I think there is a crayon there where Mr. Swanson's car was at that time. Did you observe where the defendant's automobile was? Yes, approximately. Would you draw that in? Fine. Would you also stamp that again? Yes. You say this is the curb of the street here. Yes, that's the curb. Thank you. Now, will you put a red X through the defendant's automobile? The court, I think we have our colors reversed. Mr. Defendant's counsel, we have our graph drawn the same way. The court, that's all right as long as you have it the same way. Go ahead. Now, Mr. Birch, about how many feet south of the west curb line of 3rd would you place the defendant's automobile? Do you understand clearly what I mean by that? No, I don't.
Pretty good.
I have 150, but it's hard to tell because the colloquy throws it off. You know, I'm throwing a lot of words in there, plaintiff counsel, defendant's counsel. I mean, it's like 10 words, and they're not counted.